Hello, as Linda says, I'm Emily Sullivan, Head of Product for Local Digital, and have loads of local government experience. I worked for over 12 years in local government, came to DLUC about 8 months ago now, and am leading on Future Councils. So Future Councils was set up launched in April April this year, and we've piloted with 8 councils who we've done a deep dive research project with to find out what some of those local challenges are that councils are facing. We wanted to really understand what was blocking transformation, digital transformation in particular, in those councils, and that we have come up with some challenges that we have validated across the sector and are recognisable to everyone working in local government. As I'm sure you're aware, the transformational change journey, to become modern and resilient, councils need to be able to continually transform their services, their governance, their organisation, and to do that, they need to be able to set a decent direction, a vision for where they're going, and they need to be able to communicate that effectively with staff. They need to be able to make a case for that change. They need to be able to get buy-in across the organisation so everyone understands what it is that they're doing. They need to deliver on that vision, that mission, and the case that they've made, and that they need to then partner, procure, roll out that transformation, and that they need to continue that cycle. They need to learn from that. They need to adapt. They need to be agile. We found loads of examples of great practice across the local government organisations that we've been working with, but they're hampered by a number of local challenges that stops that transformational change journey working as effectively as it could. So the local challenges that we've identified, that councils are siloed organisations, that within the council there are silos within departments across the council, but also that they work individually in isolation, that there's little incentive to collaborate with other councils, there's little incentive to collaborate across the council itself, and that really hampers some of that kind of organisational change, that paradigm shift that we're looking for within local government to be able to ensure that we're accelerating digital transformation across the sector. Governance is bureaucratic and difficult. There are too many governance boards. There are too many people that want to be involved in making a decision that don't necessarily have the understanding to be able to make that decision, that things don't move fast enough, that pace of change isn't there. That councils don't have the data, or they do have the data, but they don't know what to do with it. They haven't got it organised. They're not collecting the right data, and the data that they are collecting, they're not using effectively to be able to enable those decisions and to be able to improve services for residents. The culture across the council isn't always, there are pockets of transformational excellence within a council, but actually that isn't culturally applicable, that actually across the council we haven't got that same drive and that same ambition for continuous change and transformation that's needed to be able to ensure that modern and resilience is going forwards, and that there's a lack of skills to be able to recruit those roles that we need, that we haven't got the digital skills within digital teams, but actually we haven't got some of those digital skills within services, that actually to be able to effectively design services, that everybody needs to have some level of digital skill and understanding of service design, to be able to make those decisions, to be able to and to make them in an agile way, to be able to know that you can try and test and iterate an approach, and that some of these skills are lacking. As I say, there are pockets of excellent innovation, but it's definitely not. We've not seen it across any single organisation that we've worked with. But further to that, even if councils were to overcome all of those local challenges within their organisation, actually there's some systemic challenges that are providing an even bigger block to local government. And so, as I think everyone will understand, that local government haven't got the time, space or resource to be able to find that capacity, that space to think about things differently, to actually take a different approach, to take a step back and see the bigger picture, and to think about how they might want to do things differently. But that's not something that we can do a great deal about. But there's an issue around risk, that the risk of innovation is far too high for councils to be able to individually tackle what are quite fundamental problems with the way that the system works. there's no standard for change, that councils don't know what good looks like. There's no one single idea of what best practice might be, and that also creates 300 organisations heading in 300 different directions, and with none of them being willing to share what they've done because they're scared of the scrutiny of other people looking at what they've done, and no one's got the confidence to be able to say that actually what I've done is the right thing. And that we've also got the market conditions, and that there are two sides to this. So actually that the market isn't there to be able to provide councils with the functionality and the systems that they need, but also councils wouldn't be able to procure it and tender for it effectively, even if that was there. That there's such a focus on the as is rather than the to be and the future state, that councils aren't being forward thinking enough in terms of their approach to market. And so from our perspective, so all the research that we've done, we think that the answer to this is collaboration. So we are absolutely, councils need to work together. There needs to be a convening of the sector. There needs to be, that vision needs to be set by the sector so that there's a real clear understanding of where to go. Some of that risk needs to be held centrally or collaboratively rather than in an individual organisation, because that risk is too high. And we need to think about market conditions, not only the skills within councils to be able to make sure that they understand how to navigate procurement of systems, but also more widely around what we can do in the market more generally.
Thank you, Emily. That was mission impossible. This is like a huge piece of work for 5 minutes. Well done. If you want to talk to Emily afterwards, Matt, come up as well and get ready. We are going to direct her to Station 1 over there. And as soon as that report becomes available, it is the most coherent and holistic summary of what's going on in the sector that I've ever read. So it's really, really worth digging into. Matt Woodhill, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Matt Woodhill. I work at DLUC. So DLUC Civil Servant double header today, and I'm going to talk to you about our work to improve digital planning services, especially to do with planning applications. Those of you that may be familiar with planning might know that the good ship planning is not faring so well these days. I think to reiterate some of the points that Emily's already mentioned, there are some serious headwinds related to legacy technology in the market that are holding things back. There's culture change, there's the cost of switching providers, and unfortunately local government doesn't always help itself. Then we know, again, Emily's mentioned this, challenges around procurement, skills gaps, and actually genuinely a lack of alternatives in the sector. And this has some serious consequences. So planning itself is a really heavily document-led system, of course. It was designed based around maps. And that has a serious effect on the way that planning officers do their work and the systems that they use. They're not good at passing data around. Services have not been designed around user needs, whether you're an applicant or a planning officer. And the impact of that are serious time delays in how long it takes to process a planning application, the quality and accuracy of those applications when they're received. All of that then means, of course, that developments take longer to approve, houses take longer to build, and so on. And then you get unhappy constituents, MPs, and everyone else besides. So we in my team on planning software have 3 main missions. We are trying to, mission 1, build products that show that a new future is possible. Number 2, support the first steps towards adopting this change. And mission 3, make those benefits of that change stick indefinitely. I'm going to talk through each of those super quickly. First one, build products that show that a digital planning future is possible. Since about 2020, we've been funding the development of different digital services in the sector for different parts of the planning application process, built by different people. The only one that's actually built purely by central gov is planning.data.gov.uk. We've been funding the development of council teams to come together to put user needs and data at the heart of the services that they're developing. And they're not just putting user needs at the heart of them, but they are actually co-designing them themselves. So we have a kind of quite nuanced process for councils to get involved in co-design at different stages, whether it's being involved in sprint planning sessions every week, taking part in kind of regular monthly or quarterly product group sessions, or just being part of the user groups that are doing the testing of these services. And they are now starting to scale across the country, which is amazing. But it means that we need to get everyone ready for that change. So we are supporting the first steps of change in a couple of key ways. The first is we've got this wonderful brand now and community called Open Digital Planning. There are currently 28 local authorities that are part of this, and they're doing various different projects. Some are working on PlanX, BOPs, and the site notices and open planning register products that I showed earlier, but some are working with their existing planning software providers. They're also working on integrations between all of those different services so that we're really enabling this open digital planning marketplace as well. Meeting every quarter for face-to-face events, having a real good sense of community, and all collectively on the same kind of Slack channel. So they've got a peer support network that are constantly kind of available to support each other through different steps of the journey. But practically what we're doing right now with our funding is not just funding the products, but funding councils to take 5 really important first steps towards change to hopefully get them ready for things. So they could join the community, yes, but also the next thing we're inviting them to do is to undertake a digital planning maturity assessment. Off the back of that, they'll get access to a customised by us action plan that shows them some routes to improvement. Within that, we expect them to do further digital and data training, specifically related to planning in some cases, such as GIS training. And then, maybe most importantly, we want to actually see that they've got some skin in the game here by taking part in a proactive activity to improve and publish their planning data to the planning data platform. Off the back of this, we hope to identify which councils are moving through this really quickly and which are in a really good position to work more closely with us on further work. The third thing then is perhaps the trickiest but the most important, making the benefits of digital planning stick indefinitely. And we are really, really lucky here because we have something called the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, which passed last month, which gives us some digital powers to mandate, that's probably a better word, that councils publish planning data and that they publish them to certain data standards that the department sets. And that we have the power, if we want to or if we need to approve planning software in the market. So we're working through those funded product development projects in open digital planning to understand what those data standards should be, and with our planning data team to develop guidance for all of these. And then, more or less last but not least, we're measuring performance carefully of the old world against the new world systems. We've got some really, really encouraging results of the kind of outperformance of the kind of new products and new ways of working that we're seeing. We hope this is going to inform local authority business cases in the future for further adoption. And we're kind of keeping our eyes on the market and understanding what's going on and where, and providing that kind of intelligence back to the market to improve help them improve their procurement practices as well. So all of this, back to our good ship planning, is aimed to put a bit of a fair wind behind the boat and strap a massive kite onto the front to drag it off into the sunset. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. And next up we have thanks a million, Matt, dynamic duo that is Tom Lowndes and Amy on a newer project in a similar space. Where you go?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Tom Lowndes. I'm from Local Digital, and I'm new to the civil service. I've been with the department for 3 years, and I made the natural assumption that since we had housing in the title, MHCLG, and then DLUC, we'd be doing lots of housing projects. Turns out that's not the thing we've been doing, even though it's the council-led programme. So the councils come to us and say, this is a problem we want to tackle. Can we try doing it with some other councils? I've got some numbers here. So of the 16 million we've invested in 7 rounds of funding, just over 2 million of it was spent on 6 projects. That's 61 projects that were funded. Only 6 of them have been tackling housing. I find that incredible. But as you can see, we're in the realms of systemic problems. Planning has picked it up. We're working in areas like revs and bends. It's the same problems. But to start with, we need to understand, can we start with standards? And that's where I'm going to hand over to Amy and the amazing work you've been doing. Thank you.
Thanks. So Tom's introduced the problem area. But this really neatly follows on from the 2 talks that you've just seen. So in the housing space, just as in all the other spaces that we've been talking about, there are a catalogue of challenges faced by local authorities, and in this case also by housing associations who face a lot of similar challenges. So to provide safe homes, underneath that, you need a good resident experience, you need good staff experience, you need good processes, good data, good technology. And for the good technology, you need a functioning market. At the moment, there's problems in all of these spaces. And we've got 2 projects going on simultaneously that have been running for about 2 months now. One, the one that we're talking about now, which is the local digital team-led piece of work looking at potential data interventions. So particularly, what can we do at that data layer to try and shift things? So doing an intervention there that might improve the technology systems or the market dynamics underneath that, and also improve things going upwards as well, improving the staff experience, resident experience, and increasing the likelihood of providing safe homes. Simultaneously, another project, which I can talk to you about afterwards, looking at procurement. So as you heard, there's lots of challenges facing local authorities in procuring technology, in procuring anything, and that's another piece of work that we've been looking at with a cohort of local authorities funded through the Local Digital Programme. In terms of data, what we're looking at specifically is how could data standards increase efficiency of housing services? How can we improve the housing service through some form of central government intervention into the space, through a standard or something of that type? We've been doing lots of research, which has all confirmed things that we'd heard before and that we'd thought was the case anyway. So the key headlines: operational silos. So to provide the housing service, lots of different teams are involved. So from getting a void property ready for rent, finding people to put into that, making sure the right people are in there, managing the place, doing repairs, planned maintenance, all of that. Different teams are involved throughout this process. Each team has its own system, and they don't necessarily talk to each other as much as you would hope, given that these are connected services from the resident point of view. Because of that, there are then challenges in data collection and analysis. So frequently there will be double entry of data or a lot of manual effort going into getting data from one system and into another. Possibly, as in this example quoted on the screen, that might be by exporting the data or copying it onto paper or an Excel spreadsheet and then passing that over to another team to copy it again into a new system, rather than there just being a neat and tidy data flow between the two. Finally, all of this leads to so many challenges in decision making because you don't have that visibility of the end-to-end journey, you don't have that visibility of what other teams are doing, and you can't make the best decisions for residents or for properties. So what we're looking at now in this project is opportunity areas. So where exactly could those interventions be to shift things? There are 6 areas that we're focused on at the moment. Over the coming weeks, we are refining these ideas into really more specific interventions, but we don't expect to get there that soon. This is going to take a long time. I think someone said to me we're about 2 years behind planning in this space, so we're not going to be quite as advanced yet. But the areas we're looking at, so firstly, mandatory standards. There are already data standards for housing. So HACT, the Housing Association's Charitable Trust, created a whole set of data standards. These are well known but not well used. So we've heard about lots of challenges implementing them and largely challenges getting people to adopt them. So we're considering, what if you mandated HACT or a similar standard with some central government pressure behind that? Like, what would that actually do to the market? Along similar lines, API specifications. So we've heard about so many challenges that housing services are facing getting data out of systems or getting systems to talk to each other. So could we create some sort of specification for how that should be done and mandate it so that technology providers have to give an API to their customers? Similar again, but slightly different, free data exports and imports. Data migration is such a challenge. So lots of housing services are stuck on legacy systems that haven't been updated in a long time. And they struggle to move to a new provider or to even apply upgrades because they can't get the data from one place to another. So could we create some way of requiring that transfer to be done, to be possible, and ideally to be free, because we've heard about people getting charged large amounts of money to access their own data. National compliance database. I'll be quicker with the others. The idea of seeing other people's data from other organisations, putting it all in one place so that people actually start using the data that they've got that they're already reporting on. National KPIs. Could we set some common KPIs used across all housing services? So again, they can benchmark themselves against each other, but also would that drive technology vendors to build better reporting into the products if they knew that everyone's going to ask for the same reports? And finally, this is the real sort of outcome we want to achieve, the single view of property. Can we support housing services to create one view across the property, the residents, so that they can see everything they need in one place and that all the staff working on that can see the data they need to see to get the job done? And I'm done.
Sign up to join our research and attend next show and tell. By the way, there will be a follow-up email. I think we'll delay it until next week so that everyone can send us their calls to action from each project. And I'd say every single project has a periodic show and tell, so we'll send you all the links. Next up is the Holy Trinity of the Adult Social Care Front Door Project, and I'll leave them introduce themselves, starting with Corin.
Hi, thank you. So we've been really fortunate with the funding to take our piece of work around adult social care. And I've got my colleagues here, Ben Miller from DXW, who we've worked with, and Trish Patel, who leads our UX and content at Redbridge. I'm the programme lead for the adult social care, and about a year and a half ago we started on our journey around how can we tackle our front door, the amount of demand that's coming through, and the fact that our demographics are growing, the disproportionality of those people using our services, and the fact that our population growth for it's due to grow by about 27% for the 65-year-olds and plus. So we've had a blended team. It's been a really good team. So far, 8-week discovery, which we've decided to extend. And we started with a set of data that basically sort of painted a picture, and the same picture that probably is up and down the country for a first contact team in adult social care. Huge amount of demand coming through, not able to self-serve, and also how do you start to make those digital tools so that people can access information really quickly and easily. So this gives you a little bit of a snapshot of our data. And I think one of the main things to sort of point out here is that 98% of all the cases that come through to our first contact team end up in a duty tray. Only a small percentage are just going through. And those inquiries, we form them as part of a 3-conversation model, but basically everyone up and down the country uses the same thing. But the 3-conversation model does enable us to start to think about those digital tools and how we could enable conversation 1 to be that digital first approach. The amount of different inboxes, different things such as the Merlins, the blue lights that are coming through to the system, it means that if you've got a really good first contact team, as councils do up and down the country, but how do you start to manage this demand? And this really started to sort of shape our picture in thinking about how do we take this further. So what we wanted to set out to do is, where are people finding out information? How are they accessing it? And one thing that we know from our research is that people want to live independently for longer. And that is one of the things that families come to us and call. But how do we get them to self-serve? So we started this year earlier with a new website, which is very content-driven and signposting. A new service directory, again, trying to sort of enable people to find things themselves. But that doesn't help about the disproportionality that we have with our sort of services. We've got a great diversity in our community, but unfortunately, those communities don't always engage with us and they present a crisis. So what we're trying to do with the 3-conversation model is, how do we make those interventions and opportunities come much, much earlier, so that we can prevent people getting into long-term care and live independently, as we know, at home for longer. I'm now going to pass to Ben to talk about our research.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Ben from DXW. I'm the delivery lead in this project. As Corin's mentioned, we've worked with them for the past 8 weeks. We've got another 2 left, so really coming to the end now. I'm just going to quickly run through what we've done sort of to date. So as Corinne mentioned, we've done a bunch of research, some quite gritty on the ground research, which is quite exciting in quite a remote world. So we did a service safari, went out into the local borough, understood what pharmacies, GPs and so on were offering to residents in terms of signposting and advice. We also set up shop in the local library, had residents come to us, ask them a bunch of questions around support and advice. Where do you go? Who do you go to? We spoke with community organisations, so people who ran community cafes for over 60s, other residents like that. We spoke with the first contact team, so the people at the heart of this issue. What do they do? How do they work? What are their gripes? If you had a magic wand, what could we get? What would be the ideal? Bunch of research sort of over the 6 or 7 weeks. And what we found is that people need changes depending on where they are in the support life cycle. We called it life cycle. We have sort of 3 points. So living well, you're fine. You don't need help, but you still want to know where to go should you need it. Trigger moments. So that could be you've had a fall, you're now out of hospital, you become perhaps a little bit immobile and you need that support. So knowing where to go to for the correct support, and crisis mode is when you really, really need help. So our hypothesis for this is, ensuring that information and advice is in the places that people already look for, available in accessible and inclusive formats, and is current and accurate. That we should be able to help people better self-serve, help people get advice earlier in the journey, reduce the risk of someone reaching crisis mode. So we're trying to address sort of A and B to relieve C of all the noise and unnecessary signposting. This is a very simplified view of the journey. A more in-depth one, it looks something like that. Feel free to have a read. So you'll see you've got the before, the begin, the during and after, and there are different ways through here that people can come in, or there are different blockers here. So barriers to seeking advice or support, catering for diversity. We have a high percentage of those whose language is not English. Information needs to be accessible for all. The perceptions of the council. People are going to the council for things, it's taking them too long. 1 minute, I need to be quicker. We need to change that perception and provide a really high quality service. Down the bottom, which has been cut off, is digital. I assure you there's a bunch of really good digital stuff down there that you can't see. So all of this work played into us developing some personas of those who live in Redbridge and give a really good demonstration of the different type of people that there are. So what did we do? We ran a co-design workshop. We reached out to GPs, social prescribers, other councils. We had a counsellor come along. We played back our research, and what you can see here is from the personas, we then asked them to redesign that journey that got them there into their ideal journey, some of which is ideal, but not tangible, some of which we got some really, really good concepts from, which we're looking to wrap up really soon. You'll see on the left as well, that's kind of like our ecosystem or a big map about all the other players within this. It isn't just the council, there's a bunch of other people as well. As mentioned, we're just going through the outputs of this, and it should be released in our final show and tell on the 6th. I'm going to hand over to Trusha really quickly in the time we probably haven't got.
I'll be really quick. I'll be really quick. So, as Ben said, we've got our final show and tell on the 6th of December. We'll forward on the link to all those interested. But what we've got is a clear idea and prototypes around digital tools that would help within the adult social care and the initial triage that actually sits above a system or a website. We're also working on a blueprint, so a blueprint for early intervention and prevention that we can roll out to the rest of the council and kind of use that. These prototypes we're looking to build in the alpha stage, and we're looking to start that in the new year. But just an important point that I want to touch on is that as a local authority, it's really important for us to bring the right people onto this project. It's important to have that fresh pair of eyes and the right skills to kind of work on this project, hence why we've got DXW, we've got Lottie on board as well. So yeah, thank you.
It's a horrible time. Okay, and next up, following on nicely from that, is Lottie itself, incarnate in the wonderful Genta. Yes, there you go. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Genta Hadri. I'm delivery lead for digital innovation at Lottie, and Lottie is the London Office of Technology and Innovation. I'm hoping some of you, maybe all of you, have heard about us. If you haven't, I don't know where you've been. Maybe living under a rock or something. But yeah, really pleased to be here. Thank you very much for the invite, Linda. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit more about two projects that we funded earlier this year. But before I go on to that bit, I just want to say that at the start of this year, Lottie launched the New Service Models Innovation Fund. And what we were trying to do with this fund is genuinely something unique. All of us in this room, I think, we've heard about or been involved in digital projects, what we call digital projects, and often they are looking at technological solutions or data platforms for addressing different questions that we have within our local authorities. We wanted to kind of expand our own understanding and our borough's understanding of what the possibilities could be beyond the world of a chatbot or an app or something like that. So, and that's what we genuinely mean about the new service models. We are looking at what could be the role of the council in enabling or addressing some of the big questions of our decade, one of which is obviously the complex system of adult social care. The two projects you see on the screen is what we funded, so we awarded 100k each to each of these two projects. The first project, so developing a data platform for frontline workers. So this is a project that we are working with London boroughs of Hounslow and Brent with an organisation called Social Finance. We are doing all the kind of the groundwork on service design and user research and all of that good stuff, as well as Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. So, I mean, from the title, you can gauge what that's seeking to do, but in a nutshell, we are looking at developing a multi-agency platform. So how do we surface multi-agency data to frontline workers in each of these two boroughs? And what's that seeking to do is that for residents of those two boroughs, we are hoping that they will receive a more holistic care package that's looking at their long-term solutions, because we are bringing to the surface their full context, their family, friends, all of the different potential needs and contact points they might have with agencies other than the council. And that's why the hospital is involved in this project. For frontline care workers, what we are hoping to do there is to enable them, to really empower them, and that's where I think the new service model kind of idea comes into. Like, we are looking to empower the frontline workers to make better decisions, decisions that are more appropriate but also more effective for the people that they care for. Tangible outputs. So this project, I think, will complete very early in 2024. And in a usual way, we'll create a toolkit for boroughs that want to emulate this approach in their authorities. But we are going to have the prototype solution hopefully ready very, very soon. And all of this work is building on the family context tool, which some of you may know about. That's been doing exactly the same thing, but for children's services. And the types, just to give you a flavour of the type of data sets we are looking at, they include primary and secondary care data, housing data, mental health data. So I'm sure you can appreciate the complexities of data sharing and information governance. There are, I can say a lot more on that point, so do approach me after this. The second project is looking at piloting a home care cooperative in Clapton. Clapton is an area in Hackney, which I didn't know about before this project, but now I do. So this project is really looking at promoting better independent living by piloting a care commons approach. And what we mean by that is to bring together the local community, so voluntary and community sector organizations, the family and friend circle of an individual, as well as the individual themselves, to look at the best approaches for delivering care to that person. So the person is involved, the person themselves is involved, and the benefits to the individual is that what we are hoping, they will have better choice, but with no additional cost. And this, again, I have a lot to say about this. There are lots of complexities and challenges around kind of developing that cost model. But we are also hoping that this care commons approach, which it's a strength-based approach that involves the VCS and family, as I mentioned, we are hoping that that creates a resilience for that person, because then that person receives a combination of formal and informal care. So it's not just the social worker or care, the formal care provision that they receive. And for the care workers, we are hoping that they get better pay, better training, and they are ultimately allowed and enabled to do the job that they were actually trained to do in the first place, which is to deliver that relational care rather than having to fill lots of different forms or, having a set amount of time to support that particular resident. Again, in our usual fashion, the output we'll have lots of outputs for this, because what we are hoping to do is to provide more choice to boroughs as well. So borough commissioners, adult social care commissioners, have more choice on the types of care that they commission, I suppose, for their residents. So we'll have as an output a service specification template that all boroughs can adapt to their needs, but it will be an off-the-shelf solution that they can use to procure this kind of service. We love a toolkit, so we will also have a toolkit that explains step by step how you can set up a care co-op for a borough, in a borough if they wish to. And there will be lots of show and tells and things like that. And all of this information is on our website at lottie.london. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, can I hand you over to the Dukesy to hear more about research to figure out how to scale open referral.
Cheers. I feel like a 1970s newsman with this. Okay, so I'm going to do this really quickly. So we're going to talk. I'm just going to talk about scaling the adoption of Open Referral UK. You're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, but really we're mainly researching some recommendations on how and tactics on how we can move the needle and how it can be adopted more widely. Open Referral UK is an international open standard, open data standard. We've talked a lot already today about the importance of data standards and how we can get people to use them. We've also talked a lot about directories and actually improving the data in that. And the Open Referral provides a consistent way to collect and communicate data about community services to power those exact things that Ben was talking about. It is already well designed, well documented, and well governed. This is an established standard. It is endorsed by the Data Standards Authority at the Cabinet Office. It's not quite endorsed by these other government departments I'm claiming it is here, but they definitely support it. It's been adopted by local authorities, integrated care boards, voluntary organizations, technology suppliers. Never found such an easy route into the suppliers. For the most part, they've been on board. Gav's here. He did it off his own back, his company. It's very different than the housing sector. Our tech suppliers are not terrified by open standards. The money's very different, to be fair. So that all sounds pretty good. When you talk to people for an open standard in the government, this is already a big success. But we want to do more. DLUC have put a lot of money into this, DCMS has, LGA have committed. Everyone understands it's a good idea. And we want to unlock the full benefits of it, and to unlock the full benefits of the standard, we need more uptake. We need to move the needle. So this work we've been doing has been about investigating the barriers to wider adoption, like how can we get more people to take it up, or at least minimize some of those barriers. And we have this kind of, very, very simplified journey. Like I'm not even going to pretend I've got a scary one coming after this, but like it does kind of work like this. Like they've never heard of it, no idea what you're talking about. Someone's explained it to them, and they think that's a really good idea, but it's not a priority. They adopt it and immediately become evangelists. Like there's nothing in between. Essentially, like we don't have adopters who are kind of, it's an okay idea. They adopt it and then they're a pain to the extent that they're evangelizing it. So we want to find ways to move people along this model. But the biggest barrier is the top one, is like it's intangible. Like the benefits are second order. There's no immediate cashable benefits, and you'll all know much better than me. Like councils have got other things on their mind at the moment other than improving open data. So that's a real challenge for us. No one remembers who signed the local digital declaration. Like we can't use it as a lever because they're like, what's that? I mean, it's unfortunate. Like there's a bunch, those people I pretended were endorsing it earlier in central government. They are using it. They are out there and like talking about it and supporting it. But like DFE didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't really know what we were doing. Like if it wasn't for Mike at the back of the room, like joining some of the dots, all these things would be happening separately. Some of the engagement that we would hope in the collaboration in locally doesn't really happen because LAs kind of think they're unique or kind of think they're competing. No one agrees what a directory is. Definitely causes us some headaches. Some of the kind of charities and suppliers who are involved in supplying directory data are quite protective of it. They don't want to make it open. They don't want to share it because they're worried about other people using it. And then once you get out of the tech team, no one understands what you're talking about when you say interoperability. Like it's the reality, and like so that's a different challenge for us. One of the big things we're doing, we've got a guy called Adam on the team. He's a kind of, we call him an impact consultant, but he's a kind of classic management consultant. He likes spreadsheets. He likes coming up with models. He's the opposite of me. And he's been doing all this work. He's like doing a load of research, looking for identify like actually what are some of the cost savings, what are some of the models, what are some of the things that we can provide to councils to put into their business cases, to have different kinds of conversations with their finance officers. Like we're really working on that. Now, we were supposed to have a show and tell today, but no one showed up other than Gavin. So our last one is on December the 14th. Everyone's welcome. We'll send out invites on this. We're going to launch a survey tomorrow as well for more information, particularly about kind of time spent keeping directories up to date and data quality and that sort of thing. We'd love people to share it and be involved in that. We do week notes. We share our videos of our show and tells. We're as open as I can get away with. And I get away with a lot. So that's it. Please, when Linda sends this out, it will have a bunch of links to various things. It's interesting, it's nerdy, and when you come to talk to us later, Mike's here who does know the answers to the questions, whereas I'm just the voice. Thank you.